All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the CPMS training for state agencies. I did notice that there were a few local entities that did register and accept. So don't worry, we will go over a little bit of what local entities should be doing as well. So you're not on here for no reason. But this is primarily going to be a training on the state agency section of CPMS. So bear with us while we go through it. For those of you who have not used CPMS before, welcome. It's an Access database, and so it's really old, and we're working on finding ways to get a better database. But I apologize to those of you who really liked BFM and really wanted to continue to use BFM. Unfortunately, we were not able to continue with that product, but we did shift back to CPMS, and I did realize that quite a few of you had probably never used CPMS before, so I figured this training would be good. So this might be new for some of you and a refresher for others, so bear with me as I go through the content. But I'm going to go ahead and get started by sharing my screen. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Wesley Billingsley. I am the Infrastructure Division Director, previously was the LGD Director and Capital Outlay Bureau Chief before that. And so this CPMS reporting is going to sit within this division, and so that's why I will be giving this presentation. So I'm going to share my screen. A lot of this we're going to go through the website, and so you can have access to all of the materials as well as where to find the information to be able to log into your entity or your agency's project. So as you'll see, the screen in front of you, hopefully it's there. It should be the DFA website. And so from this website, this is the homepage. So you get here by, just Googling DFA New Mexico, or the web address is nmdfa.state.nm.us. And then go over here to these tabs, and under these tabs, you'll see Budget Division. This might get moved at some point to a new Infrastructure Division tab, but for now it is under the Budget Division tab. And so you'll hover over the Budget Division tab and go to Capital Outlay Bureau. And you'll see the Capital Outlay Bureau page pop up. And so I'm going to scroll down in that page and past the units as well as the Capital Outlay request form. That actually will be updated here shortly as well. Going down to the links, you'll see the capital project appropriation search. So this is where we'll go into to get into the CPMS system. But before we go there, I want to keep scrolling down and show you some of the other sites. There's some capital outlay forms here, grant agreement forms, our capital outlay projects. So this, you'll see all of the listing of all the capital outlay projects from 2020 through 2024. In case you ever wondered if we have those listed somewhere, we do have spreadsheets with all of those projects on them in case you need it. As well as capital budget forms, Executive Order 2013-006 information, and ICIP, state agency ICIP notices and ICIP published documents, but that's not there right now because we're going to do that in next month. So down at the bottom, you'll see training materials. Under the training materials, you'll scroll down to where it says CPMS instructions, state agency, or local entity. I'm going to go ahead and click on the state agency. And it's still loading, so give it a minute. Okay. Try to increase it a little bit. All right. And so you'll see the very beginning of it for login information and technical assistance. For now, we'll have Sarah De La Rosa as that contact. So if you need access to your CPMS login, feel free to contact her and she can help you with that. I'm going to scroll down to the very first page right here. And so in this very first page, you'll see the search tool. And so this is what I'll go over first. Whenever we get into the system is I'll go over how to search for a project in the system, and then I'll go over how to update a project in the system. But you'll see that all the instructions are here for the searching and reporting. When you scroll down through this document, which I will go through, but you'll see that a username and password are required. So if you don't have that, please reach out to Sarah and she can help you get that. There'll be some tips for entering the data into the system. There are some things that you can and cannot do. When you get to the system, there's a place to log in, and we'll show you how to go over that and put in your login information. And then we'll go through step by step how to update the state agency fields within the CPMS system. So I just wanted to start off by showing you where to find these instructions. These instructions, like I said, are on our website, and that's where you would go and locate those instructions. So I'm going to go back to the web page and scroll back up to the top where the search link is. So you'll click on this search link, and you'll see this is the capital appropriation search screen. And so you can see that there's different ways to search. You can search by the year of the appropriations. You can search by your agency, the city, the county, the fund code, or even keywords or appropriation ID. And so I'm just going to really quick put in an appropriation ID just to show you how this works. So you'll see the next screen that comes up after you put in the appropriation ID and hit the submit button will just be a summary of that appropriation ID. Sorry, Francis. There's a lot of material to get through, and we only have an hour, so I'll try to slow down as much as possible. But again, all of these are in the instructions, so you'll be able to kind of go through the instructions and see this. And so you'll see this is the summary screen. And on the summary screen, you'll have your admin agency. So this is the agency that's administering the appropriation, the fiscal agent code. Also, so I did blow it up, but also if you have not done so already, you can pop out anything that I'm going through and pop it over into another screen if you do have another screen available, and make it larger if you wish as well. So, admin agency, which is the agency that is administering the appropriation, the fiscal agent, and this fiscal agent is the entity that will be that will have the project. So most likely it'll be a local fiscal agent, unless you're a state agency and have a state agency project, then it'll be your business unit or your fiscal agent code in there. The appropriation ID, which is the appropriation number that's assigned to this project, the title of the project that's in the bill, the fund code, which is the funds associated with the project. You also have your state amount, which is the appropriation amount, your share balance, Board of Finance balance, and reversion date. So all of that will be showing here on the summary screen, but all of it is also in the detail screen when you click on the appropriation ID. So what I'm going to do next is click on the appropriation ID. Okay, and so what pops up is the details of that appropriation. You'll see the appropriation ID is listed at the top. You'll still have the home and back buttons here, which will allow you to go back to the home screen or go back to the previous screen if you wanted that previous screen. And so everything that's up in this yellow portion here, and again, this is just a search tool, so there's no way to enter any data into these fields through this screen. I'm just showing the search screen right now to kind of walk you through what all of these fields are and what they mean. And so this is the search screen. So everything that's in yellow up here is entered into by the Department of Finance Administration. So we take a spreadsheet and we upload the spreadsheet into the system, and the spreadsheet contains all of the data that is currently showing on this screen. So if there's something wrong or not correct with all of this information, please reach out to us and let us know. There are some times when some of the data is incorrect or was updated and just wasn't updated in CPMS. So if you do see anything that needs to be updated, please let us know and we will get that updated. But you'll see it has the appropriation year, the appropriation title, the fund code. It has this section for EO 2013-006 eligibility. And so I would probably tend to say not to use that. At the time of the upload, it will be accurate, but if an entity becomes compliant later on and it's not updated timely, then it could be misinformation. So the original upload, it could show as non-compliant, and then eventually they become compliant. So I would definitely make sure all the agencies that have local entity projects, you should have access to a shared drive that actually has the UFC forms and the compliance data in that on that site. So I would use that as your compliance or non-compliant mechanism, and don't use CPMS. We will try to work on getting this as accurate as possible in the future, but right now I know that it is definitely not accurate. So I would say don't use that field to show compliance or non-compliance. You'll see the field underneath that is the bond sale date and the bond series number. Because this is a general fund appropriation, there is no data in those fields right now. If this was a severance tax bond or a general obligation bond, that should show you the bond sale date and the bond series number, as well as the amount of the bond sale. So those three will be filled with using State Board of Finance data. Underneath that, you'll see a category and subcategory. You'll see the category. There's only 4 categories we use. We use local, higher education, state agency or statewide, and then reauthorization. Those are our 4 categories. And then we have lots of subcategories underneath it. These are difficult to determine. Some projects have multiple subcategories. It could be, for instance, it could be law enforcement and it could be a vehicle, which are both category or subcategories. So we try to make the one that's most appropriate fit, but we'll try to update these as best we can, and in the future we're going to try to have a good list of them. Right now they are kind of all over the place, so just bear with us. County is the next one, so the county should state the county in which the project is in. Again, state amount is the appropriation amount. You'll also see chapter, section, and paragraph information, as well as the reversion date. So again, all of this yellow field information is updated by DFA when we upload the data into CPMS. So I will scroll down. The next area is the share/Board of Finance data. And you'll see the green fields there are the expended amount share and appropriation balance in share. And so this data comes straight from share. And so we do a GL upload from share into the system quarterly. And so that's where that information comes from. And so again, if you see something that might be off in those fields and you think that that data is incorrect, please reach out to us. We are trying to make sure that we have the correct reports and we're running the correct reports to get that data into the system quarterly. And again, if it's just off because maybe it was a timing issue, then we'll figure that out. But if it's off because we're just not capturing the correct categories or fields from share, then we do need to know that. So let us know if you see anything that is an issue. I know that when we set up budgets, there are some agencies that move money from one fund to another fund when they're setting up their budget for some of these capital appropriations. So sometimes it is duplicated. And so we try to catch those. We try to run queries for those. But like I said, sometimes it's just not correct. So just let us know if you see something fishy there. Underneath that is more of a blue section, and that's the Board of Finance data. And so you'll see that it has the expended amount from Board of Finance, the AIPP amount, if there was AIPP for the project from Board of Finance, the reversion amount, if some of the project was reverted, then the appropriation balance, as well as the last update. And that last update is just our update. So we actually, once all the information is in CPMS, we actually have to run an update quarterly to get the data into the spreadsheet and into a spreadsheet that we can use and that LFC can use it. So that's what that last update will be. So you'll see 7/1/2024 was the last time that we actually ran that update. So if you've had any drawdowns or expenditures since 7/1/2024, you'll notice that they're not in this, they're not in these fields. So that's the share/Board of Finance data. Again, that's run on our end. We do the queries and we run all that data into the system on our end. I'm going to scroll down again. And if you do have any questions during this, please feel free to put them in chat. We'll go through them. I want to get through it all, and then we can go through the questions at the end. The next section is the state agency data. And so this section is what the state agencies need to look at and review and update. And some of the data in these fields are are driven from the state agency providing the information, and some of it is automatically put in. For example, the first two, the ICIP project number and ICIP priority number, those are actually captured in a spreadsheet that we actually get from the capital outlay request forms when these capital outlay projects are requested. And so that data will come straight from that and pushed into the system. So you will not have to update those pieces in this field. The next one is the local fiscal agent code. And so when we upload this data into CPMS, we do our best to try to match the project to the appropriate local fiscal agent. Sometimes, most of the time, we are successful, but sometimes we have the wrong local fiscal agent identified. So if for some reason there is a wrong local fiscal agent that's identified, you all as users have access to that data, or I have access to that field, so you can go and change that if you need to. So please feel free to do so whenever you see that fiscal agent is incorrect. The next field is the reauth from prior project amount field, and we'll kind of go through an appropriation here in a little bit to show you how to put the correct data into those fields. The amount obligated field, which is the amount that is currently obligated. So this is the total amount of the notice of obligations that you have within your state agency. So if this is a local entity project, it'll be the total amount of notice of obligations you've received from your entities. If this is a state agency project, it'll be the total amount that you have encumbered in share. That's what you would put into that amount, into that field. Project end date. Sometimes these projects end before the reversion date, so that would just be a date that you anticipate the project being completed if it's before the reversion date. More often than not, the reversion date is what is put into the system. The expended amount is the amount of total expenditures that you show on your end at that moment in time. Again, that amount could be different than what was showing in share, what was showing in State Board of Finance, or maybe even possibly what the local entity shows below. So it's probably the best thing that I would state to do is, especially if you're a state agency that has local entities, is this expended amount here is the amount of pay requests you have received in your office to date. Again, so it might not have been processed through share yet. It might not have been drawn down from Board of Finance yet. So it might actually be higher than the share or the Board of Finance expended amount. Or it might be lower than the local entity expended amount because maybe the local entity has a pay request that they're about to submit to you but has not submitted. So all four of those expended amounts could be different. And so I just want to make sure that I state that here. AIPP amount. This is the amount, and again, an amount that we upload into the system. But if you feel like your project should have an AIPP amount in there, then please reach out to us and we can verify and make sure that that amount is in the project. And so AIPP are for projects over $100,000 that are a construction or renovation project. That's for a facility. So there's lots of other rules in the AIPP statute. I'm not going to go over that here, but those AIPP amounts are typically uploaded by us. Like sometimes we remove an AIPP for some reason, and so then if we remove it from DCA's inventory, then we need to make sure that we also remove it from the CPMS field as well. And sometimes we don't. So again, if for some reason you feel like there should be an amount there or there should not be an amount there, please reach out to us and we can get that fixed for you. Again, reauth of balance to new project. This is a different field than the reauth from prior project. We'll go through that here in a little bit as well as the reauth to project number. The reversion amount is an amount that you know that is reverting. So the entity has submitted their final pay request, or you as a state agency have submitted your final expenditure, and this is the amount that you are going to revert to the state. That's the amount that will go there. When you do put an amount there, please be sure to notify State Board of Finance if you are reverting some funding, or fill out the appropriate paperwork for the Financial Control Division if you are reverting a general fund appropriation. So these general fund reversions should be included with all of your general fund reversions at the end of each fiscal year. The next one is project status. And so this project status field gives you an idea of what is going on with the project. So this is the one that's probably most important, especially to the LFC. They want to know what's going on with the project, and so this one Should be as detailed as possible, but not going into overly excessive detail. And I'll go over that here in a second with the project status below. But we do want to know who the notice of obligations were for, which vendors are working on the project, maybe an anticipated completion date of the project, or maybe what's going on with that phase of the project. That's all good information to include in this project status field. It's also good information for the local entity to put in their local entity project status field as well. Goal milestones achieved last quarter. So this will show us what was accomplished last quarter, and then of course goals milestones for next quarter, which is what's coming up. And so what maybe you're going to be submitting another notice of obligation, or maybe a pay request in the next quarter. So we would like to see that here and in this field. The next field is the project phase field. And this project phase, there's a list of project phases. And so actually what I will do is I will scroll down to the bottom of this and kind of open up another browser for you to see. So at the very, very bottom, you'll see it says click here to see the phase descriptions, as well as click here to see a list of the fiscal agent codes. So if you remember up above, there was a local fiscal agent code section. If you don't know what the fiscal agent code is for, let's just say Rio Arriba County, you can click on here and it'll open up a list of fiscal agent codes. So you can do a search here for Rio Arriba County if you wanted to. And it will bring you to Rio Arriba County with their 5-digit code. So if you ever need to know the codes, this is the location to search for those. You could also scroll down on that field list in CPMS and go find Rio Arriba County. It might take longer because they're in alphabetical order, so it might take you a while to get to the R's. So it might be good for you to have this list open to be able to see, what the code is for Rio Arriba County. So I'm going to just do that really quickly. And you'll see right here, Rio Arriba County is 17000. So you can go and look for that in that field list. And so going to go back real quick. To the project. And the same thing you can do with phase descriptions. So click here to see phase descriptions at the bottom. And so it'll show you a list of these phase descriptions and what each description means. It goes anywhere from the project has been appropriated all the way through project closeout. And then there's even some other ones in there for projects that maybe have been voided or vetoed or reauthorized, or the bonds weren't sold. So you'll see all of those here. And I know it's kind of small. I'll try to increase it a little bit for you. And it also gives you some definitions too. So if you're not too sure which one you should put in, you can kind of read through these definitions and see, if a grant agreement has been issued, maybe you'll want to put 0150 grant agreement issued, or if it's executed, then it's 0160. And since we're on that topic, this is also a good place for us to kind of find out if a grant agreement has been issued or not for your project. So again, if you're dealing with local entities and you're dealing with grant agreements, it's very important to make sure that this status is updated so that we know if a grant agreement has been issued or executed, because we go onto the site to kind of look at that. Legislators go onto the website to look at that. And so it's good to have that information updated as much as possible. And so obviously, if it's been executed and you're ready to move forward with the project, that's when you get into the project planning and the purchases and process, as well as the design and construction. So just pick the appropriate one and put that in there. And the last thing I'm going to say about the phases is when the project is ready to close or the project has been closed, don't just put the total expended amount and leave it as a zero balance. Please also make sure the status is updated to project closed or purchase complete if it was a purchase. That way we know that the project is done, and so we know that we don't have to really look at that project anymore or review it to make sure that the updates are complete. We'll know that that project is finally completed. And so this is the appropriation phase list. I'm going to go back. I'm going to scroll back up. So that project phase also is the same list of phases that are in the project phase for the local entity as well. Calculated balance. And so the calculated balance is a calculation. That's why it's called calculated balance. It does take the state amount at the top in the yellow section, plus the reauthorization from prior project amount. Just in case there is a project that was reauthorized and it was not an original appropriation, we need to include that in here. So it takes the state amount plus the reauth from prior project amount, and then it subtracts out the expended amount, the AIPP amount, and the reauth of project to new balance amount, and the reversion amount. So it takes all of those and it puts them into the calculated balance. And then these last agency update and last submission date here below are the last times that we ran the update, which again was on July 1st, 2024, or the last time the state agency updated this, which in this case was March 16th, 2023. This is an older appropriation, so that does not surprise me that it's been that long. But again, this project is closed, and so that's why there was no submissions since then. All right, I'm going to scroll down to the next section. So that completes the state agency section. Again, I'll go into one in more details here in a few minutes. But I just kind of wanted to go through the local data section real quick. And so there's fewer fields in the local data section. You'll see that there's only an expended amount here and a current balance here. So again, the expended amount, whatever expended amount they put in here, all it does is it calculates the state agency amount, minus the reauth amount, and then minus the expended amount. So they don't have the same fields. They don't have a reversion amount field or an AIPP amount field. So it just takes the total amount of the expenditures and calculates the balance here for us. And you'll see in this particular case, the entity did not do that. And so they still show a full balance, even though the state agency closed out this appropriation. So they did not do a good job of updating this record. However, as you can tell with the project status field, they did a great job of putting in a lot of detail for this. And so the question that you probably all are asking is, do you need that much detail? The answer is no. This is kind of overboard. This is probably something that was, I'm assuming, maybe taken from their system at the local level and just kind of pasted it in here. This is very good information, however. I would prefer to have this much detail than nothing in this field at all. But this is definitely overkill, and we definitely don't need to have this much in here. This can probably be summarized better, especially at the end of the project where, you know, the project's complete. They could just summarize all of this into maybe a smaller paragraph. So we do not need this much information. Just want to make that point clear. So scrolling down, again, we went over the project phase field. We went over the goals and milestones for the last quarter and next quarter. It's the same information that we're asking from state agencies. Valid contracts in place. If they have valid contracts in place, they would put true or false here. And if there was no activity for the month being reported, they would put true or false here. So those are two fields that they have that are not in the state agency section, as well as the last submission date and the last update. So that completes the local section. I'm going to go down to the project timeline just real briefly. This project timeline should be filled out by the local entity, and they're the ones who should be putting all of this information in here. Again, this entity did a pretty good job of telling us, you know, what the funding sources were for this project, what the amounts were, when they were going to be completed, and what the contract amounts were. So this is a really good example of how to fill out the timeline for this project. And so I'm going to stop here from the search tool because I really do want to get into one of the projects to kind of show you what to do with one of the projects. But before I do that, I will take some questions because while I'm still in the search tool, it might be good to take some questions now. So I will go in the chat. So I know Maureen says Board of Finance numbers aren't showing the 6K in AIPP. I've noticed this for several other grants as I've been updating CPMS lately. Can someone correct the AIPP amounts in Board of Finance? So yes, we will look into that. Let us know which ones they are, Maureen, and we can kind of, and I know that you obviously won't be able to know all of them, but the ones that you have identified, please let us know so we can look at those. It might be the whole bond series isn't showing up correctly, and so we want to make sure that we correct that if that's the case. So yeah, just get that information to me. And then can you please repeat the purpose of the field last submission date within the state agency data? So I will do that. So the last agency update, the 7/1/2024 here, that's the date that we ran an update. And so when I say we ran an update, that means DFA actually goes into the system, and we actually have to run queries to get certain data into this report. So while you all are updating your data in the state agency data section, we are running updates on the back end to get the share data in here, to get the Board of Finance data in here. And then also, per Rhonda's next comment, also to get some Excel uploads in here. There were times when we were uploading Excel spreadsheets for some agencies. And so I will talk about that here in a little bit, Rhonda. But there were spreadsheets that we were uploading as well. And so also getting those spreadsheets and the data from those spreadsheets in here, we have to run queries to get that data in here as well. And so that's what that date is for. The last submission date, however, is the last time a state agency was in this record and hit submit. Okay, and hitting submit's the important piece. If you were in your record and you were looking at your fields and you did not hit submit, then no date will be updated there. But if you did hit the submit button, then this will show you the date that you hit that submit button. So that's what that last submission date is on the state agency section, as well as the local entity section. So Rhonda, I'm going to skip yours for now. I will get back to it though. Kevin says, how should we be reporting on project status goals and milestones on statewide appropriations? I've seen some of these appropriations support over 80 individual projects. Yes. And so you just have to be as brief as possible. If you don't anticipate anything for the next quarter, Kevin, then just put maybe nothing anticipated or something to that degree. Again, if you are anticipating some small achievements, I think put those there, right? I mean, if you're moving from the design phase to the construction phase, then that's obviously something worth noting. So I think you should definitely put that there. And you should put anything that's going to show you, to tell us what's going on with that project, because if there's nothing there, then we don't know, what's going to be going on that next time. Carmen, did you have something to say on that as well?
I was, but then I don't do what you did, what you just said. So if you look at E3421, that's one of our statewide, and I actually listed how many were actually awarded from that, because we actually, do several. That was an emergency fund, and it just listed who was actually awarded funds from it, is how I did that. And thank goodness, just about all of them expended their funds before the deadline. So I'm very pleased about that. But so I will be updating that, even though it was already completed.
Perfect. And that's actually a good point, Carmen. Thanks for bringing that up. So as we all know, all appropriations are different. Obviously, all local appropriations, if it's for a particular project, then that makes sense to kind of put, if you're going to have another notice of obligation or whatever may be the case. But some state agency projects, like Carmen just mentioned, that's a statewide appropriation that's going to be awarded to multiple entities. You might have different data that you want to put there. So that's perfectly okay, Carmen, to have different data there. We just really want to know what's going on with the project and what's being achieved. And it's really for movement. I think the LFC likes to show that things are happening with the project. And so if you don't put anything in there and you leave it blank over the course of maybe 2 updates, maybe like, half a year, then they might be reaching out to try to get some information from you because they're not getting what they need on their end, showing that the project's moving. So I think it's just really something to show that there's movement for the project is really what you should be looking for. And then Maureen stated, in the past, the obligation amount was the balance of the obligation expenditures. Are you now looking for the full obligation amount? Yes, Maureen, I think we want to, I think it's easier to just put the full obligated amount in there so that we know that the total number of obligations or the total amount of obligations are there. We're not using it to calculate what the remaining balance is or anything of that nature. So I think getting the full amount obligated is crucial, and we should put that full amount in there. I know that Callie kind of answered this one, but how should we be reporting on projects? Okay, so Callie was helpful and put what LFC is looking for their as well. So for LFC, it would be helpful to know the total number of projects benefiting from the appropriation and brief highlights of specific projects on a few. So thank you for adding that, Callie, as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the search screen real quick and go quickly to an appropriation or to DFA's login so we can kind of go through one in the field. And so you will click on login here on the search tool. And of course, if you're a local agency, you'll click state agency. I mean, if you're a state agency, you'll click state agency. If you're a local entity, you'll click local entity. I'm going to go into the state agency one. And I'm so thankful this was pre-filled for me because I don't remember my password. So if you do need, again, to know your password, please, again, reach out to Sarah or myself. I could help as well, and we can get you a password. So you'll put in your username, your password, and hit submit. There is only one username and password per agency. Again, that might change in the future with the new system, but for this system, there's only one that you'll have to share with your agency. And so at the very top here, you'll see it says DFA's login. And so right here, I'm hoping everyone can see it. It says showing open appropriations only. Click here to view all appropriations. So as appropriations are closed out, and closed out again, meaning they have a zero balance, and we would like for them to show 0 to 50 project completed. For all of those that are showing a zero balance, they will go to basically a back-end table where you will view all the appropriations. But the reason why we do that is because I think once they close out, you typically aren't as concerned about them. You're more concerned about the ones that are open, trying to get them closed. So, and so as you'll see on here, and this is kind of one of the reasons why I was having this this training today, is there's still a lot of appropriations that I think have reversion dates of June 30th, 2024 and prior that need to be closed out. I know that we tried to do that to the best of our ability within the BFM system, and I think some of them were done correctly in the BFM system, and they might have been opened back up when we transferred the data back over. And I do apologize for that. But if you are showing projects here that are still open that need to be closed, please go back in there and close them. As you can see at DFA, we have a lot of work to do as well, and so I'll be working with Carmen and her team to get that done too. But we do need to make sure that all the projects are closed that should be closed. So, so you can click here to view all appropriations. So I'm gonna do that real quick just so you can see them. You'll see appropriations from probably very, very, very old ones that are from 1990 something, I believe, are in this table. So this actually might take a while for it to come up. So you'll see 98 is the oldest appropriations here. We have them back as far as 1998. And so again, the good news is that all of these appropriations are in here. You have access to all your data. If you have old appropriations, you could easily come in here and see them all. But for now, I'm just going to go back to the only open appropriations so we can kind of go through one so I can show you what those look like. And I did select one to review. I'm going to look at a reauthorized one because I think those are the ones that give us the most trouble. And so I'm going to start with a project that I was looking at earlier. And so I'm going to control find. So again, you can control find in here. You don't have to scroll down. You can control find and go find the appropriation that you are looking for. And that makes sense. So what I just did was I looked for D2844, and what that sound means is that it's not showing it up in here. And you can see there's D2843 and D2845. The reason why is because this one was closed. But I still want to go into it and kind of show you what to do with a reauthorization. So I'm actually going to go back into view all appropriations and go find that one to show you what needs to be done correctly with these reauthorizations. So give it just 1 second to load. It's still loading. Okay, so you'll see here D2844 is the appropriation I was looking for. And so you'll see now that we're actually in our in the CPMS database where you can actually update the fields, the screen looks different. All the yellow is gone from the top section, it's turned to gray. The Board of Finance and Share data are still green and blue, but you'll see that fields have now opened up within this section. And so again, this is where you can put in your local fiscal agent code. I'm going to just click on this real quick to show you what I was talking about earlier. If you want to scroll down through this, there's lots of records in here, so it's easier for you to probably just start typing like 17000 if you're looking for Rio Riva County rather than scrolling through it. That's why I was showing you the search tool earlier for those fiscal agent codes. And so again, the main thing I want to hit on here is the reauthorization. So if you're having a project that's reauthorized from a previous project, and so say the balance was $200,000 that you're moving over to a new project, that's where you would put it here. But in this particular case, D2844 was reauthorized to G4016. So when that happens, you would put the reauthorization amount here under reauthor balance to new project. I know it seems simple, but I know that we have seen errors and we've seen these numbers put in the wrong field. So I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that there's two reauth places, but please don't put it in both places, because again, if you put it in both places, then your balance right here, calculated balance will be wrong, because when you put it up here, it's going to add that 314,976 back in. And so we don't want to do that. So you'll know that if you did it wrong when you're trying to close out a project, because your balance will be off. So just keep that in mind. Again, we went over amount obligated. Again, it tells you some instructions here: enter numbers only, no $ or comma separators. So there are special characters that that you cannot use, not only in the calculated fields or in the amount fields, but in the project status fields as well. Listed on that CPMS instructions form. Again, hopefully with the new system, we won't have those issues anymore with those special characters. But for now we do, so please look at that. If for some reason you hit submit down below, right here, and you have some sort of error message pop up, more than likely one of two things have happened. Either you put a special character in that project status field or in one of the other fields, or you put too much data or too many characters in one of the fields, the project status or the goals milestone. It's very finicky. Sometimes it allows you to put more characters than others. Just remember, if you're putting a lot of data in there, you might not be able to. So try to pare that back a little bit, summarize what you're trying to put in there, and more often than not, you'll see that it will accept it if there's just less data in there. I think it's just it's one of the issues that we have with this system. It just doesn't hold the amount of characters that sometimes we would like. And so on this particular appropriation, there was no AIPP. And so the reauth of the balance was 314,976. Scroll up a little bit. And then the reauth to project was G4016. So the format should be that. So if you have a project that was reauthorized to a new project, it should be, again, since this is a D project, it should either be E, F, G, H, I, obviously something after the letter D in the alphabet, and all the numbers for reauthorizations begin with the number 4. So it should be either H4016, G4016, or even I for this last round of appropriation. So just remember that there should be a number that starts with the number 4 after the letter in that reauth to project number. Sometimes the reason why I bring that up is sometimes I'm going to scroll up to the top real quick. Sometimes you'll want to use this whole grant number or this whole A code. Don't do that. Just use the last 4 digits when we're trying to put the numbers in down below. So it'd be the letter with the 4 numbers. Again, project status. So you can see that there's lots of room to put information in here. So you should be able to put quite a bit of information. But again, don't use special characters. And then the goals and milestones we kind of went over already. And when you're reauthorizing a project out, you should always reauthorize funds reauthorized for another purpose. The only reason why it would be different is it could be reauthorized but no balance available. And so if you have no balance available to reauthorize, meaning that you fully expended this project or the funds were reverted prior to the session before it was reauthorized, then you would put that in there. But every other time it should be this funds reauthorized for another. That's the only one that you should put in there for the reauths again. And then you would just go down below and you would hit submit right here. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to mess with this record. I'm just going to hit the back button. But that's pretty much how to put a reauthorization in. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into the next record, which was G4016, to kind of show you the next piece of it. As you saw, I was in the view all appropriations, and when I hit submit and got out, it put me into the view only appropriations. Again, the system does that. This is an Access database. There's nothing we can do about that. So if you want to go back into a record that was closed, you'll have to click that again and go back into the back end of it. So real quick, I'm going to look at G4016. And again, just like the last one, this one was closed. So this was done, I'm kind of showing you that it was done correctly. So I'm going to go back into the view all appropriations and go into that record. And the reason why I'm showing you this one as well is that this is a project that was reauthorized multiple times. And so it's imperative that we get these reauth balances correct, because you'll see if we don't, then we have issues with the reporting data on our end, and then Callie and I have problems with reporting that data out. Okay. So G4016 is right here. I'm going to scroll down again. And as you can tell, again, I'm going through this real quick. You can see the bond sale date here shows 1/8/1900. That's data that I think the CPMS system automatically puts in. There really is no bond sale date, so I will work with the system administrator to try to get that cleaned up as well. There is some cleanup that we need to do on our end too, all the time. So I will look into that as well. But so this was one I wanted to kind of show you because this was reauthorized in and it was reauthorized out again. And so you'll see that same 314,976 was put into this reauthorized from prior project amount field. And then they did have some expenditures during this time period, which was 202,917. And so their reauthorized amount for the next project is $112,059. And this was again reauthorized now to I4016. So this was reauthorized from 2019 to 2022, and then again in 2024, right? And so that's why it's important that all these are done correctly so that we can actually have this data flowing through the system correctly. Unfortunately, this is a system where it doesn't automatically do it. With the new system that we get, our goal is to have it automatically do this. That's one of the things that we're going to be looking into when we have a new reporting system. But for now, we're going to have to go in there and manually enter this data into the system. So again, it's always good to put something in the status stating what happened, that this was reauthorized to a different appropriation, so that we know why this is being closed out, right? And so there we go. That's the data for this one. And then I'll go into the final one. Again, I'm not going to hit submit. I'm just going to hit back. And I will go into this one, which should be open. It is. So as you see, the 112,059 is being correctly put into this new field up here. And now it's correctly identified as now appropriated. It might actually be further along in the appropriated phase. This one might have been reauthorized and now has grant agreements issued. So if that's the case, then we'll need to update that in the system, or if there's other maybe projects in design or something, we need to make sure that that's updated. But this is the last piece of it. One thing I did want to touch on too, real quick, is back to the AIPP amount. AIPP should never be in a reauthorized project. Just want to make that clear. So the AIPP is always taken out of the original project and should never be placed into a reauthorized project. So if you're showing an AIPP amount in a reauthorized project, then it is in there incorrectly and needs to be corrected. So I wanted to point that out as well. All right, so I will stop here and entertain any more questions if there are any. I don't see any in the chat. So are there any other questions? Okay. Is there a timeline on getting a new system for this reporting? Yes, my goal is to have a new system in place starting next fiscal year. I know that's a year away. So with this new system that we're developing, it's going to be an all-encompassing system. It's going to be a system where you track your ICIP projects, basically from beginning to end. So we're starting with the ICIP portion of this capital database. And so that one, we're actually signed the contract last Friday. And so we're going to be moving on with the ICIP portion of the database. We're hoping to have that done in a few months, and then we'll be moving on to the reporting part of the database. But simultaneously with that ICIP portion, local government division is going to be also doing kind of a grant management module in the database, which again, all agencies will be welcome to use. I know some agencies on here already have your own grants management module. You already have your own system, and that's perfectly fine. But we're going to have a module that actually tracks all the grants, tracks the notice of obligations, and tracks the pay requests. And so all of that will be in here. And so it's going to be a system from A to Z. So give us some time. We're hoping to have, some of this stuff implemented by the end of this fiscal year, with maybe some enhancements and other items by the end of FY26. So be looking out for that in the next couple of fiscal years. We will be reaching out to some agencies and some entities to help with the testing of the new system as well when we get that started. Sarah, go ahead before we get to Amy's question.
Hi, I just had a real quick question. I just wanted to point out to folks, I've received a few emails while we've been online from folks who have pointed out that they've missed out on this CPMS training. And just to let folks know that this is being recorded and it will be placed on our website, I believe, as soon as possible. So in case anyone has missed this that you know of, just refer them to the recording.
Yep, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
All right, and then so the next question was from Amy. How do you get into editing the form? I have ours open on a different screen and I'm not able to edit it. So you'll have to have the login. So I see you're with the 8th Judicial District Court. So the very first screen that I went on, I'll go back to it real quick. When you go to home, so right up here at the top where it says capital appropriation search, you click login. And then state agency, and you'll need your username and password. So you won't be able to update any fields from the search tool. You'll have to actually go into the system, into the login screen, and update it. So Amy, let us know if you need that information. Again, Sarah can help you get that if you need to. And yes, Shelley, we are excited about the new ICIP. We hope that it's going to be better. The goal of it, honestly, is to get better data in there so we can actually help all of you get more funding. With this new division, we have a new navigation bureau, and I know both Ethan and Haley are on here right now. And their goals is to get you access to some funding. So the better data we get into an ICIP, the better chance of you getting some other funding opportunities, and we'll be looking at those for you all. We need to report quarterly as a local entity. Are our deadlines earlier than the state agencies? That's a good question. That's one that's been brought up as well. So as of right now, both the local entity and state agency need to report at the end of each quarter, which is the 30th or 31st, depending on the month, right? So for this one, it's September 30th. I do realize there will be some timing delays. I realize if a local entity is in there on the 30th, then the agency probably will not be able to update that record. I'm okay with that. Again, we have some information in here, like if the local entity does update their data on the 30th, we have their data. So we have the most updated data anyways. So we're fine with that. So don't let that be an issue for all of you state agencies. Just update what you can by the 30th. And again, if something was updated by the local entity, it's no big deal. We'll capture it next month, or we'll actually have that data in there for this report anyways. So please don't make that be a barrier. I know the next one is, what is the ICIP project number? So every agency has access to the ICIP system. So the ICIP is the Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan. And so the Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan is basically a list of projects that you as a state agency or as a local entity want for your community or your state agency. And so every year the state agencies are required to submit their ICIPs by July 1st. And local entities vary anywhere between, I think it's like April and May through August, I think, or July or August. So if you need your ICIP project number, you should have it in your ICIP. So if you've never submitted an ICIP before, again, get with us, contact either myself or Sarah or Tonanzine, and if you're a state agency, and we can help you in the future, put in an ICIP and submit an ICIP. It is past the deadline this year. We're actually coming up to our hearings in October, but the statutory deadline for state agencies is July 1st. Lisa, I apologize that I came in late, so this may have already been asked, but how and when are the ICIP amounts determined? And thanks for the clarification. So this is one thing that we struggle with as well. They are determined right after the session. The Capital Outlay Bureau, along with the Cultural Affairs, the Department of Cultural Affairs, Meredith with the IPP unit, they get together and they go through every single project basically and determine whether AIPP qualifies or not. There's a statute that kind of determines what does qualify and what doesn't qualify. But basically, just to summarize it, it's construction projects and renovation projects that are over $100,000 that are specific renovations and construction to or for a facility. Like for example, if it's listed in there that is for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning unit, like that wouldn't qualify. If it's just to put a new roof on a facility, that wouldn't qualify. So again, there's certain things that don't qualify, but that's how they're determined. Personally, I wish they were determined in a different manner. I wish they were determined on the council services side whenever they're making the appropriations, but this is how we determine them. So if there are any issues with AIPP and how it's determined, again, as Tonazine will tell you, the most important thing that you can do, one of the most important things you can do as a state agency when you're reviewing the budget upload is to make sure that the AIPP amounts in your budget upload are correct. If you think one of those AIPP amounts should not be there, or do you think there should be one in one of the other projects, let us know at that time. That's the time to let us know. Don't let us know after it's been budgeted, because then it gets more difficult and it gets harder to reverse budgets and reverse AIPPs. So if you do think that your project is subject to it or not subject to it, from a state agency perspective, please reach out during that budget upload time and get that clarified then. Next question, just to make sure the training on Thursday is for the new request process, not the same info, correct? That is correct. So the training on Thursday is for the capital outlay request process. You'll be going through that process with Michelle Jaskey from Council Services. I will be there as well. I don't think the governor's office is ready to have a training on that yet. We'll probably have ours later on in the month, but go ahead and go to that. If you haven't signed up for that yet, please do. And I don't know if Carmen, you want to speak to that at all before we go on to the next question.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, and I know that we're out of time, but if you did not get an invitation to join us for the LCS training on the capital outlay project request form, please just put your email in the chat and we will make sure that you receive that invite. It is on Thursday at 10:30 a.m. Hope to see you all there.
Perfect. Yeah, so if you want that, please put your email address in the chat for Carmen to send it to you. I don't want to send it. There was over 300, 400 people on this invite, and I know that a lot of them probably don't want to receive that email. So if you do want to, Carmen will go through here and hopefully get you all that training invite. What if this project isn't in the ICIP plan? And so if it's not in an ICIP plan, then that ICIP project number and rank number will remain blank. Although I do encourage you to put all of your capital or infrastructure projects on an ICIP. Again, we'll talk more about that in the coming months of why that's important. Again, the Navigation Bureau is already starting to look through and get requests from entities on their capital projects. And so they're able to help you find funding. And so if we don't know that your project needs funding or your project exists, we can't help you find funding. So it's really important to put your projects on an ICIP plan so we can help you find funding. And so our goal too is you'll see that lots of those ICIP numbers are blank. Our goal is to get that up there. I think years in the past we maybe had 25% of ICIPs included in that. I think now we're closer to 50, maybe even a little bit higher than 50% of all of the capital appropriations are on an ICIP, and our goal is to get that increased. Another Another good reason to have it on an ICIP is it's easier to fill out the capital outlay request form, as you'll find out on Thursday. If you have an ICIP that's being pulled into that database, then you can just pull that ICIP project into your capital outlay request, and it's all there, and you can just hit submit for the most part. There's a few more questions that Michelle's going to need, but for the most part, your data is there and you can easily move forward with it. So another good reason to be on an ICIP. And then I don't want to leave without answering your question, Rhonda. So this will be one of the last things that we talk about. So yes, that spreadsheet will be available for only agencies that have local entity projects, that have a substantial amount of local entity projects. And so there's only 8 agencies right now that we are going to have. The reason for this, just before, I know there's probably lots of size and why can't we get our agency included, is it takes a lot of time and effort for our system administrator to create these queries. And so like environment and aging and long-term services, your queries were already created by the system administrator years ago, so they don't have to do any updates on yours. But for local government division, for higher education department, for public education department, for Indian Affairs department, and state engineer's office, I think that's pretty much all of them. You know, it's going to be a query that he's going to have to create and put into this Access database. So we're trying to keep that to a minimum, but we are allowing spreadsheets to be uploaded. And for all of those who will need to upload spreadsheets, I probably will send another invite out to kind of show you how to fill out the spreadsheets, because as you know, Rhonda, those spreadsheets can't be manipulated or changed in any way, or the upload won't work. So for those of you that will be able to use the spreadsheet opportunity, we'll schedule another training session for you. If not later this month, maybe next month. I know that doesn't help with some of you who are new to it, but I'll see if I can get something on the calendar for this month. At what point is the new grant added to the CPMS list? The new grant should be added to the CPMS list we try to do it by July 1st after the session. So it usually isn't right away. It's usually between, you know, March, April, and the end of June is when we try to add it to the list. Now, general obligation bonds are different. You'll see none of the new general obligation bonds are in CPMS right now, and that's because we're waiting for the election to happen, which is in November, because those have to be part of the election. If they aren't approved during the election, then there's no point in putting them in the system. So that's why we've waited on those. But for the most part, they should be in there already. If not, then let us know, and we can get those entered for you. All right. That's all the questions that are on the chat. So if there aren't any more questions, then this pretty much concludes the training. I know we are out of time. If there's something that's easier for someone to request, maybe we can, if you want to put your name in the chat or I have a question in the chat, we can open up your mic to ask a question if it's easier to do it that way. Yeah, thank you all for joining. If you have any questions individually, feel free to reach out. I can help you as well. I know there are some new agencies on here that are brand new to CPMS, as well as grant agreements. And Roy, I see that you're on here. If you have any questions, Roy,